All right, sorry I am not here today, but we are looking at lesson 9 in our workbook. So we're skipping a couple lessons and going to lesson 9. Now we're going to need our workbook out, and everyone's going to need their Chromebook on to take care of this. So whether you're watching this solo or as a whole class together, everyone's going to need their workbook out. We're going to make some changes in our workbook, and we're going to follow along on our Chromebook because today we're talking about using technology to represent data. We're going to use some spreadsheets. So hit pause if you need to get your Chromebook out and launched and ready. Your workbook open to lesson 9 in unit 1, where we're going to learn about technological graphing. I'm going to do this step by step with you. And if you're in my class, this is Mrs. Derby here, I am going to ask you to turn in your spreadsheet to the Google Classroom so I can see that you were able to make all of the same data and information that we made together as a class. So just follow along with us. You'll be good to go. It tells us that we're going to open a spreadsheet window and enter the data. So you might need to open up a new tab, or you'll just go to your regular kind of Google page there. You're going to go to those 9 dots in the corner up here, our Google Apps, and that's where we're going to see our sheets. So we're going to use a Google Sheet. It's a spreadsheet tool. And we're going to open up a blank spreadsheet. All right, now we need to give this thing a name. So let's call it something that we'll be able to remember what it is later. I'm going to say Algebra 1, Unit 1, Lesson 9, and there's the title of my spreadsheet. And our spreadsheet has lots of tools and different things we can do with it. Let's go see what it's asking us to do. Open a spreadsheet window and enter the data so each value is in its own cell in column A. So perhaps you already have noticed this. We have columns across the top, A, B, C, D, and rows down the side, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it asks us to start right here in A1 and use each point of data in its own cell. Now you can have your workbook open next to you. I already have a print off, so I'm going to go ahead and follow those instructions and enter each data point in there. So I'm hitting 7, and then enter will take me down to the very next one, and 8, enter, 4, enter, and so on. Go ahead and do that with all of our data in our spreadsheet directly from your workbook. And it looks like 2 different columns in our workbook. They just did that to save space. We want the whole thing all in column A all the way down. So just like you see my screen right here, it should look like that so you can see all of our data points here. Now it asks us how many values are in your spreadsheet and to explain your reasoning. Well, our first data point is in row 1. So when I think about all of our data points, oops, what did I just do? There we go. All of our data is in your column 1. Sorry about that. And so if we want to know how many data points we have, we just need to go down to that bottom row, and I see there are 20 data points. Now Google will also tell us something else too. If we highlight all of it, which means if we hold down the mouse button or the trackpad, if you're using that, hold it down and we can total it down. Down here, notice it tells us what the sum is. And one of the other things that we can do is click that button down here. Okay, so I highlighted all of that. And if you click that arrow, it will actually tell you lots of other pieces of information. This is going to be super handy because right now I can already see that my average for all of these numbers is 8.9. The lowest number is a 1. The highest number is a 15. And there it is. My count tells me that I have 20 numbers in this data set. So there's another way that we can go about that. Neat way to see it. So when it asks us how many values are in our data set, let's write that in our workbook. our lovely answer here. I'm going to put it in a different color. That we have 20 data points. And it's because the last number is in cell A20, meaning that there are 20 data points because we went to cell A20. Now that's how we call each of these cells going on here. Each of these cells, we can look at the column and the row, and it's like playing, what was that game? Battleship, right? Where you would try to sink someone else's battleship by calling out numbers and coordinates. So it asks us in number 2, if you enter the data in order that the values are listed, the number 7 is in cell position A1. We see it right up here, A1 in our workbook. And the number 5 is in cell A5. Now it says list all of the cells that contain the number 13. So I'm going to go looking for number 13, and I see it here. Now this is in cell A4. It also tells us right up here what that cell number is, so that's a nice place to look. So I'm going to add that to my workbook, that it's in A4, A12, and A14. All of those have the number 13 in that cell number. So A4, A12, A14. Let's go add that as an answer in our workbook. So we saw that in, still writing in my nice bright color, we saw 13 in A4. We saw that in A12. And we saw it in A14. So 3 cells had the number 13 in them. Now, problem 3 tells us in C1, type the word sum. In C2, type the word mean. And in C3, type the word median. Okay, so C1, it asked us to type the word sum. In C2, type the word mean. And in C3, type the word median. And what this should do, what our computer thinks it's going to do for us, is actually tell us what those values are when we have it for a data set. Now, GeoGebra is what our IM workbook thinks we're using, but we are using Google Sheets because this is what you're more likely to use in your future. So instead of using that word sum, we can actually do what we looked at before. All right, the sum is the total of all of our values, right? So we can find the sum of our data set by actually using using this symbol right here. See this functions right here? All across the top are all these great tools. And one of our functions, this kind of gives us a bunch of our possibilities. Now, these are the ones we're going to use right here. It asked us to do the sum, the mean, which is the same as the average, and then the median. We're going to see how we're going to do that in just a minute. Okay, but we want to do the sum in cell C1. So I have C1 highlighted, and I'm going to put that word sum there. And notice it changes it to an equation. It says equals and it has this blinking cursor in these parentheses. Now, without clicking anywhere else on the screen, you got to do this part very carefully. Click and drag from A1 all the way down to A20. Click and drag all the way down like that. And now it put those letters in here that we're doing A1 to A20. That's what that colon means. So it's going to find the total of all of our values from A1 to A20. If you hit enter, now it'll tell you that that's what that sum is. Now I'm actually going to move that over into one column next to it. So I'm just going to get that hand tool and drag it over, or you can just retype that word sum there so that we know that that's what we found here in D1. We found the sum of A1 to A20. Hit enter. To find the mean, we're going to do kind of the same thing. If we want to find the mean, I'm going to go into the row right next to it, or the column next to it, so I know what I'm looking for. And I want the mean, which is the same as the average. Okay, so let's click average. And again, we're going to find that average of A1 to A20, hit enter, and it will fill it in for us. Now we can also, as we saw before, we can find a lot of these values by highlighting our data set and using our information down here too. So we can see what's going on there. Okay, so we found our sum and our mean, and we're looking now for our median. Okay, now to find that median is a little bit more challenging. Okay, so we're going to look at all of our possibilities because I see the sum, average, count, max, and min are there, but not the median. So I'm going to go to all, and I'm going to scroll down over here until I see that word median. I know it's in here because it's an important data point that lots of statisticians use. So there it is right there, median. So by looking in the all, I can find the median command, and it's going to find the median of all of my data. Again, I'm going to highlight A1 to A20, hit enter, and it tells me that the median is 8.5. So we can find some really neat things there for like the sum and the mean and the median of things that we've been using. Now I'm going to keep on going because we've got those things here now in our spreadsheet, and we could enter that in our workbook. In fact, that's a great thing to write down in our workbook of what it told us, that this data set has a sum of 178, a mean of 8.9, and a median of 8.5. So write that down in your workbook, and then let's keep on moving forward. I see section 9.2 asks us to use the data from the warm-up. We're going to calculate some other statistics and look at that data. All right, so next to the word sum in cell D1, we typed that sum. Ooh, we already did all this, right? So these are the things that we already found using our sum, our mean, and our median. And then right here, those exact things that we see in our workbook next to sum in cell D1, type equals sum A1 colon A20. So all of our spreadsheets are going to work the same. So we've got our sum, mean, and median, and we can see all of that is happening using those same commands. And so we found a value for each of those statistics. I guess I jumped the gun when I put it over here, right? And so we found all of that data already. Let's go ahead and put that answer there in number 1 in section 9.2. Who knew? Now it asks us to change some values, and that's what's kind of cool is that we can change one of our values and see what it changes for all the statistics without having to recalculate. So far, we've had to add up everything and then divide by the number of data values, and that's how we've found some of our information. But here, what we can do is just change one value, and it will automatically make that change for us. So it tells us to change the value in A1 to 8. Let's go do that. A1, I'm going to change this value to 8. I want you to watch my numbers here in column D, because as soon as I change this to 8, those values are going to change. Now notice the sum changed a little bit, the mean changed a little bit, but the median didn't change at all. That's because making a small change to one value may not change what our middle value is doing. So when it asks us, how does that change our statistics? I'm going to take those same values that we had in number 1, and I'm going to adjust them because it changed the sum. It raised it by 1 because we added 1 more. It turned the mean to 8.95. Sorry, my computer's giving me a challenge there. But it kept the median at exactly 8.5. But by changing just that one value, we could already recalculate. That's the power of the spreadsheet. You can, if you made a mistake in a value, you can change it and it will recalculate automatically. Now we're going to put a value into A1 that would change the mean to 10.05. and the median to 9. So I'm just going to play around a little bit. I'm going to try some different values here. It asked me to only change it in A1 to get the mean at 10.05 and a median at 9. So I know I need a bigger number because I need these to go higher. So I'm going to try 15 and hit enter. Okay, well, it got the mean a little bit higher and the median higher. The median's at the right point, but I still need a little bit more here at the mean. It still needs to be higher than this. So I need to go higher than 15. So I'm going to try 25 and hit enter. Okay, that got the mean a little bit higher, still not quite high enough. Median is locked in at 9, so I think that's doing pretty well. Let's try 30. Enter. Boom, there we go. So by trying some different numbers and getting that data point right, I can see how that might need to, how that would impact some of my other values. So I had to change A1 to a 30 to make that happen. Whoops, sorry. What value can be put into A1 to change the mean? Well, we found that that had to be, we had to change it to 30. So this is how we can start seeing what a change might make, or if I know what kind of average I'm looking for, let's say for a class or a test score, or maybe like a batting average if you're on a baseball team. We can see what we would need to, what value we'd have to get in one game to change that batting average. Cool stuff. Alrighty. Keep on going. I'm going to stop here so that I can start a new video, but it's a good chance for you to stop and check in with your neighbor, make sure they've got everything that they need to on their own computer and a spreadsheet that's ready to go for all the info that we've found so far. Keep on going. There's another video that's coming up next.